All right, here we go. I figured I ought to weigh in on the upcoming election. We're less than a couple weeks out, and seems like things are going just a little bit crazy. So thought I'd get my 2 cents worth, get it on video for the record to show, where we are, where I think we are. And I'll say what I always say. I hope I'm wrong, but trying to figure out what these bastards are doing is, it's not an exact science. There's a lot of tells that you can read that give you a pretty good idea, and sometimes they just come right out and tell you what they're going to do. And like I've said before, you don't always know the time frame, but you know the agenda. And I think with all the material I've covered, if you've listened to any of my previous episodes, I've gone over it in pretty good detail that they've been sort of building this system for, almost 250 years. And man, it seems like there's an escalation going on that to a lot of people, a lot of people don't even see it. There are people that see it and may think that it's just sort of the regular machinations of just another election season. There may be those that see the heightened nature of it. And then, where I am is, yes, I see the heightened nature of it. And what I'm trying to figure out is this just a lot of fear mongering to keep us in a state of fear so that we're more easy to manipulate? Or are they really getting ready to do the things that they're sort of saying they're going to do? And it looks familiar if you've studied history. And it's got me questioning some things that I thought I knew about history with as much of the research as I've done. There's some stuff that's like, wait a minute, and specifically what it's looking a lot like is the lead up to World War II. And obviously the parallels are easy to see between the way they're demonizing Trump and Trump supporters as fascists and Trump as Hitler. And it just seems that the level of that rhetoric has reached new levels in the last few weeks, and it just seems to continue to climb up that sort of escalation ladder. And when you go back and look at history, well, first let's talk about the reality of where we are today versus what the globalist, psychopath, maniac, Democrat left is saying. And they're creating a false reality that a lot of people are buying. And that is that Trump is basically Hitler. He's going to be a dictator. He's going to round up minorities, Hispanics, anybody that disagrees with him, put them in internment camps, and maybe even kill them. They're literally saying this with a straight face on mainstream media outlets. So it's complete insanity. But there's a segment of the American population that believe it, and that I don't think we should take lightly, because how do you pull people back from this edge that they're dragging us towards? And I'm pretty concerned about that, and because we all know if Trump gets in that none of that is real, none of that is true, and they're just trying to demonize him so that people won't support him. Or is there more to it? Are they trying to demonize him so that it will kick off this insane, violent conflict that they've been pushing us towards? And there's some, there's a chance that's going to happen if you listen to some of the things that they've said. What was the one guy, Congress dude, Jamie Raskin, said that if he wins the election, the Democrats are not going to certify because he's not qualified, because he supposedly, is a convicted whatever, the 34 felonies or whatever. Well, he's not convicted. He is qualified. We all know that was just kangaroo court bullshit. But again, there's a pretty good chunk of America that thinks that's true and that's real, and they're going to believe what the Democrats say. And so if you take that further, and he's a globalist mouthpiece, that if they are going to do that, they're going to try and create a violent situation to stop him. So what does that look like? And how does that play out in terms of history? because no matter what they do, they're going to blame any and all violence on Trump supporters, and that's how the media is going to report it. That's how it's going to be viewed through the optics of history, and it really, it just makes me wonder about some of the things that happened during World War II. And I've touched on this a couple of times in my videos that, yes, suppose, I don't even know anymore what's real or not. I'm not saying I don't believe anything, but I don't really know because the people that I'm supposed to believe have lied to us about pretty much everything. So when you look at the history of World War II, Hitler was a bad dude, rounded people up, put them in the gas chambers and all that. And there's supposed evidence with Auschwitz and all that. Those places exist and are real, and people have, talked about it. But, they can make anything look real. And I'm not saying I don't think that happened. I mean, I'm not a Holocaust denier, okay? But I'm questioning some of that because it may have allowed the sort of globalist cabal, which really is pro-communism, okay? So if you look at what was going on during World War II, how much of what they have accused Hitler of doing did he really do, and how much did they do afterwards to make him look like the most vile, despicable, evil person in history, so that we would never support nationalism and we would never support sort of the nation state, and that would lead towards, marching us towards this globalist, communist New World Order. And to fully understand that, I think you got to look at what was going on in Germany, not just during World War II, but the lead up to World War II. And I'm going to do a video on this, hopefully my next video, kind of significant events of the early 20th century and kind of how they led us to where we are. And if you look at, the lead up and what was going on in Germany, I think people were surprised a few years ago when this new group called Antifa came out, and we found out that it looks exactly like a group called Antifa back in Germany in the, 30s, 30s, the lead up to World War II, when Hitler was in power in Germany. So, there's some parallels there. And, with the amount of influence that the communists had in Europe at that time, I think, it led to the rise of Hitler, and I've mentioned that. And he stood for a lot of things that a lot of us would agree with, right? I mean, that's just the truth. You just separate the maniac and the other stuff that he's accused of from some of his rhetoric. I haven't read a ton of his speeches, but I've heard some of it, read a little bit of it. And, he did a lot to bring Germany back from a really, really bad place after World War I, because they were blamed for World War I. And again, you go look at what started World War I. It was a false flag with the assassination of Archduke Ferdinand of Austria. And so Germany backed Austria, and they basically declared war against I think it was the guy, there were some nationalists, he was Serbian, and so, but anyway, that was what started World War I. Well, yes, Germany, backed Austria and they started World War I, but it was a false flag that created it. So who really started World War I? And if you look at a little bit of the connections of who the person was and how the events unfolded that led to the assassination, it was some Serbian nationalist group. Okay, that sounds, questionable right there. All right, so who's, so many of these groups, folks, they're created and run by these government power structures, okay? So right there, that's a red flag to me, that you've got some Serbian nationalists that are trying to foment war, and Serbia was not a major power, right? So they're fomenting war. They're executing the Archduke of what is sort of the power center of Europe at that time, or at least competing power. And that to me, that's similar to Ukraine going to war with Russia. And on no scenario, on no planet, does Ukraine have a chance at defeating, the Russian Empire. But there they are, right? So I question that and the forces that were behind that. Obviously, somebody wanted us into World War I. It wasn't just Germany, being these, subhuman monsters that wanted to go kill, steal, and destroy, right? And maybe there was some of that. I don't know. All right, so that's questionable. Germany's obliterated, and the reparations and whatnot that they're burdened with, it's impossible. It's just forever economic doom. There's no way for them to get off the mat and rebuild. Whether they deserved it or not, it's for each person to decide. So, along comes Hitler's, and he really put them back on the map. He got their industries going. He stood up for their sovereignty. He did good things. And again, when you say this, the left will just seize on it. Oh, you're a fascist. And I was like, oh, fuck off with that. I just listen to the argument, okay? It's not all black or all white. There's a lot of other stuff going on, and they do a really good job of gaslighting us into submission so we don't even question it, all right? And I think that we need to look at. So I question it ever since I started seeing cracks in the story, a few years ago with, World War I, World War II, and the official narrative of that. All right, so you have Germany kind of rebuilding. In comes the, what's the name of it? I always forget it, but I shouldn't. I think I've got it written down here somewhere. Oh, man, Frankfurt School. Okay, so the Frankfurt School sets up shop in Germany, and they're basically communist, right? And teaching all this radical, critical theory. And around the end of World War I, you've got the Bolsheviks overrunning Russia. So you've got this handful of radical communists, just fucking nut jobs. All right, the communists, they're absolute fucking nut jobs. Anything less than that, if you don't see it, you're not paying attention. These people are absolutely insane. And somehow insanity and the mentally unstable or just ridiculous seems to gravitate towards the ludicrous ideology of communists. But anyway, so you've got this growing structure, this growing power in Russia of communism, basically, at the doorstep, of Europe right there, and they're expanding. And so Hitler's coming along saying, no, we're not going to allow this. And I know one of the things that he did was kick the Frankfurt School out of Germany. And he took a pretty hard stance against the Antifa, the anti-fascists. All right? So you're starting to see the parallels. And he was right to do that. Right? He was right to do that. They are a bunch of just maniacs. It's just debauchery. It's decadence. They were rolling out all the anti-human trans eugenics bullshit that we're seeing in America now. It's the same people. It's the same program. And, somebody came along and said, no, you're not going to do that here. We're going to protect Germany's interests and people. And that's what he did. Now, I don't even know what to make of the Holocaust stuff, because for all I know, and again, I'm not saying I think this happened. I'm just saying you got to be able to think outside of the lines. What if, and I've read one of my episodes here where I read a passage in, let me see, it was in episode 6, Pawns in the Game. And it was made a comment about, it was, Pawns in the Game. And it was about how it's okay that if we had to kill 30,000 or, I think he said like 30,000 of our own to set up the conditions that we would forever be protected with this anti-Semitism, canard, right? And that really got me questioning too. It's like, well, how many people really did die there? So, and I just, it may be, so there's that, right? We don't exactly know. There's a lot of evidence. Okay, that's fine. But look at what happened to Germany fighting the communists in Russia, right? And the communists hated Hitler because they hated nationalism. They hated the values and whatnot that he was trying to protect. And again, I'm not saying he was a good guy. Can we just talk about some of the other stuff that was going on? And so it created this, and communists, you just see them, you hear them. They're completely insane. They just want to kill. They're out for blood. And so imagine the communists finally defeating the German army and rolling into East Berlin, right? And rolling and recapturing, Poland and all of that. Well, what did Russia do when they captured Poland? I mean, Poland went from fascist to communist. So really there was no improvement there. And some, would say that it was probably pretty rough. So you have to look at all that territory, and you have to look at, I haven't studied this in depth. This is just kind of like, I wonder. You look at where the camps were, and, the communists, they hated the Germans. So were the communists responsible for some of that carnage? That's what I'm saying. I don't know. I'm just throwing out a crazy idea. I'm not saying it's fact. I'm not saying it's history. If you can't parse these kind of things, then you probably shouldn't listen to my videos, because you got to have an IQ above, at least 100 or maybe 90. I don't know. But you got to be able to hold two ideas in your mind at the same time, recognizing that you don't know which one is empirically true, as none of us do. We weren't there. We're being taught history from people that we thought were authorities. And a lot of us have since learned that you can't trust any of that. So I have no idea what happened in World War II. And I don't fucking believe pretty much anybody or anything at a national level. It's just, and I even question the books that I read. I don't know what the truth is. I think there are things that make sense. There are things that, okay, seems reasonable. And I'm willing to accept that I don't know the absolute truth. And people that just spout off on social media, like, it's a fact and it's undeniable. Look at the way he acts. You'd be crazy to think he's not for real, because they're really good con artists. You don't know. So none of us do. So I'm wondering how much after the fact, when Germany was conquered, World War II, that they went in and I've read, one of the books I brought up in one of my episodes, Hellstorm. It's what happened in Germany from the eyes of the Germans. There was a lot of regular folks in Germany, and they just got fucking annihilated. Okay, men, women, children, the elder. You could say they all deserved it, but really, an 8-year-old kid, because he's German, deserves to be slaughtered on the street. A 12-year-old little girl deserves to be raped and killed. You're telling me that's justice? If you think that, maybe, I just think you got to question that. And that's the nature of warfare. It's brutal. It's ugly. And the communists, some of the accounts that you read are just absolutely just horrific. And so, all right, so there's that. There's some gray area there around World War II, and maybe the history isn't completely what they've told us that it is. And we need to look at that, not because we want to know for a fact one way or another what was true, but there were people orchestrating that, and they wrote the history the way they wanted it. And now here we are, 70 years later, whatever it is, 70, 80 years later, and we're seeing a lot of similar stuff going on. All this demonization of Trump and the right. How is that any different? It's so basically, Hitler demonized the Jews to persecute them, and then the communists demonized the Germans to persecute them. And that's kind of what I'm saying. I'm not saying that the German people and Hitler are the equivalent of the U.S. I'm saying the play that they're running on the grand chessboard looks similar. The communists are running plays to demonize and make us look like Hitler, and maybe there was some of that going on back then. That's what I'm saying, because basically the same people are still in charge. The same groups, the same power structure are still in charge. And I've said this many times. They run these plays over and over and over again, and we don't know because we've never seen their playbook, and we're trying to figure it out. So what it looks like is maybe they're running the same play, and they're going to demonize us to the point of being the next Hitler. Well, that's obvious, but let's just keep that going. So, okay, let's say Trump gets in power and they're able to kick off some sort of, violent uprising. And then under the cover of that, they can just unleash all hell on us because, the country, I don't know what that's doing there. What the hell? Already got it on. Anyway, so the country is already going in that direction, and you know how bad, and this is the ideology of communism and just the absolute evil of it. You know how bad they want to kill us all if you're paying attention. And I'm not exaggerating. That's not hyperbole. That they want to kill us. They want to round us up and put a fucking bullet in our head. They'd also like to torture us a little bit first because they are consumed with just this anger and evil and just sickness. They're dangerous. And if they get the green light and they see the opening, they're running for the end zone, man. And it's going to be hell on earth. Okay, so they're trying to set up those conditions. They've been importing all these, crazy gangs and immigrants and terror cells and I mean, everything. But there's millions of people here that are ready to rise up and fight us just because we're white and we're American or whatever that looks like. And I've said it. Maybe I think I wrote it in this blog post here at My Political Madness. We're entering the time of the warrior, and I hope you take a minute and go and read it. I'll leave a link to it on this video. And people better be ready to fight. I mean, out in your street. And I know it sounds crazy, and I hope I'm wrong. But there's millions of people that have been brought into this country for the sole purpose of killing Americans. You got to get that, all right? And if they have the cover of we're the terrorists, we're the extremists, we're the what's wrong and dangerous about America, they're going to kill us all. And then they're going to write that history, and we're just going to look like they're going to teach it in school. We'll be the next Hitler and all those evil, right-wing conservatives. That's what they're setting up. And this election, it could go hot. I mean, it's insane to think about. And I don't know. Like, you always know what they're going to do if you read their writings, but you just don't know when. And this looks like now is the time that they're setting that up, just at least just that section of it. All right, you've also got the more global plays that have been made as far as weakening our infrastructure and creating conditions that are going to create a world war. So what I've been talking about in this video so far is just sort of the national kind of what's going to happen within America, not the rest of the world with China and Russia and Iran and all that they're also heating up. So I'm just concerned, very, very concerned for this election cycle that, we may be looking at the last election cycle that even remotely, I mean, they haven't been legitimate in a while. There's some element of fraud. In the last couple cycles, it's been, escalating, and this one is going to be even worse. I posted something on Instagram the other day that, you're going to see unbelievable level. I posted on Instagram and Twitter. You're going to see unbelievable levels of fraud, and a couple of connecting points, and why I believe what I'm about to say. I'll explain. Is they're going to cheat so big, so bad. And that it has to be open in the light of day. And they will. And they'll do it. Right in your face. It'll be open, it'll be obvious, even more so than in 2020. And we know how obvious all that was. So, and why do I think that they would do that? I mean, you would think, they're going to be careful, they're going to get persecuted, they're going to, some sort of laws and election interference and blah, 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 blah. Really? When? Look at what they got away with in 2020, and if you even suggest that there was cheating, they will destroy you. Ask the people that tried to expose the voter machines and the fraud that went on there. Sued for what, $100 million? What did Fox pay Smartmatic? $150 million or something? I mean, it's top of head. I could be way off. And that's ridiculous. We know that. I mean, it's so easily provable how the voter machines have been used for 50 years, 60 years, or close to 60 years, since the late 60s, early 70s, to steal elections. And yet they've created a reality that if you even suggest it, you're lying and you're smearing a reputable company and should be prosecuted. That's the reality they're setting up. And it's just getting worse. So I think they're going to steal it naked in our faces. And it doesn't matter what the law is or what the rules are. And again, watch my other videos. They don't follow our rules and our laws. They operate on the law of the jungle. You have to stop them physically. You have to walk up and grab them by the neck and stop them from whatever it is they're doing, or they're just going to keep going. There's going to be no cops. There's going to be no judge. There's going to be no lawyers. There's going to be no courts. There's going to be no nothing that is going to stop what they're going to do, and they know it, and so they're going to do it right out in the open. And we're not going to stop it. And it's going to look like child's play compared to 2020. Now, this is my sort of armchair quarterback guess. I have no idea. I'm just kind of reading tea leaves. And I think that they're emboldened now because they've gotten away with so much. And once you understand their mindset, that is that of the sort of satanic do what thou wilt, it's transhumanism, situational ethics, they don't operate by our rules. That's why they do whatever the hell they want and nobody stops them, because we're operating under our rules, which is laws and morals and all of that. And those don't work with them anymore. Until we figure that out, they're just going to keep steamrolling us. And I don't know what that looks like. I mean, I've already figured it out, but there's nothing else I can do. I can't stop this, murderous band of psychopaths. All I can do is, make a little video here and see what y'all think, and we'll see where we end up. But I'm very concerned that we're going to see all hell break loose. And if they get away with it, they're going to rewrite history. And it'll be like we were never even here, or that we were and they finally got rid of us and it was a good thing for humanity. And you look at all the establishment, all the media, all the entertainment, I mean, everything that you see in the system we're in, they're of that mindset. And maybe not the pure evil, but I'm saying if you disagree with them, you're a problem. All the corporations, all the money that goes into this system, that supports this system, the big companies, the sports complexes, just all of it. They're all lined up with that agenda. And if you try to say something, you're part of the problem. So, I don't know. I mean, I just wanted to get that out. So I'll post this here shortly. And any comments I would appreciate. I'm really concerned. And I don't know if we've got, much time or if we can do anything about it. So we'll see what happens. I mean, I'm going to go vote. It's not going to do a damn bit of good, but I'm not going to not vote. So we'll see what happens. And maybe I'll do a follow-up on this one after the election. And if none of this comes to pass, great. For whatever reason, all the rhetoric, all the positioning, all the posturing, all of the crazy stuff they're saying, if they don't do it between the time, either Trump wins or they cheat it and the inauguration, then, we've got a little time to fight them. And if Trump's in, they're going to be just as insane as they were before, even worse. They're going to be trying to impeach him from day one. They're going to try to keep him from getting in the first place. And then if Kamala gets in, well, it's just more of the same. We're going to World War, and at some point they're going to unleash the radicals on us, and we're going to have to, we'll see. I don't know. Or not. I mean, I don't know. Like I said, prepare accordingly, like I always say, and I hope I'm wrong. So, until next time, later.